Guys, Nick here and welcome back to another Supergirl episode review. My thoughts on tonight's episode of Supergirl titled Better Angels, which is of course the season 1 finale of Supergirl. And first off, I gotta say this. For anyone who watched my review of last week's episode, and when I said I was gonna be really let down if they end up just using a hopeful speech as a way of snapping everyone out of the whole myriad mind control thing, of course they did it in the episode. Shocker. But it didn't bug me as much as I thought it would. Just because I already saw it coming, I wasn't, let down or, really, annoyed by it. Because I know the show and I know how cheesy it can be. In this episode, and I gotta say this, first of all. While not the best season finale I've ever seen, I still loved the episode. With its cheesiness, with its, just little over-the-top dramatic moments. I like this episode a lot. Obviously, one of the only real problem I had with this episode in general was the fact that, they had Superman, down and out the entire episode, and you see, Superman's body, in the DEO, and of course, we don't know who it is, or at least the actor who's playing him, because they probably hadn't even thought that far ahead in actually casting him, especially since the show, still hasn't even been picked up for a second season, so, well, hopefully it will be, but I don't know, I just like seeing that kind of bug me, and really that was it. Everything else, again, because this episode is cheesy, because the show is as cheesy as it is, and just so lighthearted, and just I don't know, even when there are high stakes, it feels like, at the end of the day, everything's gonna be okay, and that's how it was in this episode, and that's not necessarily a bad thing in my opinion. Some people might have problems with that, I already see it coming, just because, people in general, have their perception about how TV shows should be, and Supergirl is one of the most lighthearted TV shows that's not necessarily a kid show, and for it being, a superhero show and a female-driven, female-led superhero show, it's very lighthearted, it gives a really hopeful message. No pun intended, but I don't know, it's, the way this show has carried itself throughout this entire season, I liked it a lot more than I thought it would. Screw that, I loved the show. Did it have its problems? Yeah, sure. Any show does, especially in its first season. But this episode, the only problem I really have with the show as a general was I never felt like the whole threat of the Kryptonians and Myriad and all that kind of stuff. I never felt like it was a real threat, because I feel like, again, kind of like what I mentioned earlier. At the end of the day, it just kind of felt like, oh, they're gonna save the day, and that's gonna be it. And that ended up being the case, obviously. But despite that, I still like this show, for the most part. Melissa Benoist as Kara Danvers in a Supergirl, she owns the role. She just brings so much hope and joy into this character that, because we haven't seen this character portrayed since Laura Vandervoort, who plays Indigo in Smallville, and even then it was a similar character, but this character feels more ready to take on the world, as Supergirl, whereas the one in Smallville was a little more reserved, felt a little more mature, because she came into Earth, in her 20s compared to when Kara came on Earth in her, so it's a different version of the character that, because I had my pre-existing notion of who I want a Supergirl to be, because I saw her on Smallville, Melissa Benoist blew me away. I loved her as this character. I love this whole show. Even James Olsen, who is a character that, when he was first cast, a lot of people got, all mad just because he's an attractive black guy. First of all, this is a version of Jimmy Olsen that is, it's 10 years past him being the nerdy, freckles Jimmy Olsen. And that's one of the things that I've tried to argue with people, this isn't necessarily that Jimmy Olsen, it's James Olsen. He's older, he's more mature, he's more confident in himself. At the end of the day, is he written like Jimmy Olsen would have been in the comics? No, he's written as a love interest, and that can go either way. But I feel like they handled him as a character pretty well for the most part. What I have like to have seen more of the Jimmy Olsen aspect of the character, and seeing him out there on shooting photography. He was an art director for Catgo, so he's not as out there as much as I would want him to be. But the way they used the character and the way, I still don't like the way they used his and Lucy Lane's romance throughout the show, but I liked how they used the character, especially by the end of the show, where I really bought into their romance. I really did, and for anyone who's detesting it, I think a lot of people who detest the relationship just have problems with interracial relationships in general on TV or in general in life. And to those people, I can say, this is 2016 and stop being so fucking racist. But anyways, well, and other people will just argue that, like, oh, he's a bad actor, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can have your opinions about actors, whatever. Just don't let racial bias judge your, like allow you to dictate how you judge a person. Like, judge a person as a person. Don't judge them because they're black, because they're Latino, or whatever. Judge them on their own merits as a person. Don't necessarily judge them as a particular race or whatever. That's just the point I'm trying to make, obviously. Anyways, to get not so political, and so some of the things I want to go back to this episode in particular, and then I'll go back to the season as a whole. Lucy in this episode, I feel like this is one of her more strongest episodes for her as a character, because the Lucy Lane character for a while was just James's love interest. Like, that's all she was, and I felt bad because the actress seemed like she was doing a pretty good job. I didn't like how they were using a character just as a love interest. And for anyone who's watched my videos for any period of time, I don't like how they use females just as love interests. And even then, I felt like that with James for a little bit, but they kind of like backtracked that once they made him the one who had a love interest. So, I mean, I just don't like that in general. So that's why, for a while, I really didn't care for Lucy as a character because they didn't write her well. And then once her and James broke up and she became, part of the DEO, I liked what they were doing with her as a character. And by the end of the episode, when the DEO and the military and all them are coming together saying there need to be no more secrets, we need to do this together. And you can see, Lucy Lane, having some more self-confidence in herself. And being able to, because, not just because of Carr, but, everything that's happened, she's allowed herself to be more hopeful and more confident. And I like seeing that, and hopefully they do a lot more with the character when the show's renewed. And so we can see that more in season 2. So, what else? Okay, and here's the thing about, Maxwell Lord. I brought this up in the past. I didn't like the character for a really long time. Just because there was something about him that I just didn't like. And I finally figured out what it was a few episodes into his introduction, that he felt the writers made it seem like this was going to be their version of Lex Luthor. The businessman, the genius, the public face, he's this billionaire playboy kind of guy, but deep down he's actually this really evil, maniacal kind of guy, much like Lex Luthor is in the comics. But the way they use him towards the end, I liked him more because he, despite everything, he wanted to help save the Earth. And I like that aspect of the character because it gives him more layers, that he's not just, this two-dimensional villain that he kind of was. That there is more to him, despite him being, he's still a bad guy, but there's more to him, he's not just so, again, one-dimensional or two-dimensional. So I like that from the character by the end of the season. So, what else? And of course, seeing Kara and John team up to stop Indigo and Non. And again, that fight, I mean, I like the fight. It was cool and everything when John, literally, rips Indigo in half. That was pretty intense. Even though it's like a fake body. But still, that was pretty dark. Especially for a lighthearted show like this show is. And then, seeing, the heat vision battle between Non and Kara. Very reminiscent of the episode Red Face, where she fought Red Tornado. I like that part of the fight, right there. I mean, at the end of the day, I knew that he was gonna lose, but still, it was a cool fight nonetheless. But what else? I mean, despite because I mentioned earlier in my video that some of the acting in this episode, well, not necessarily acting, but the dramatic scenes were a little too overly dramatic because it was a season finale. There were some scenes that hit me really well, when Kara was pretty much saying goodbye to everyone at Catco, when she was having her moment with Wynn. I thought that was handled really well and performed really well by Melissa. Same thing, all the scenes between Kat and Kara in this episode, I felt they made me tear up a little bit. And this show, I mean, I know how cheesy it can be and how overly dramatic it can be sometimes, but those scenes between Kat and Kara just made me tear up, especially in the end when Kat gives her a new office, and she can basically say, you can do whatever you want here. I mean, it's not going to be any more pay, but you have your own office, because you've been the best assistant and all that stuff. And that made me happy. It made me tear up. I don't know, because I'm more in touch with my emotions than most guys probably are. And I'm a nerd, so I don't know. Seeing that kind of stuff just made me, really happy. And by the end of the episode, I just felt, really happy. Even though, I kind of knew, I figured that the show was going to end on a happier note. And but okay, well, before I get to like the end of the episode, I mean, I want to bring this up. The whole like ending it on a cliffhanger. You know, another Kryptonian pod comes crashing down. Kara opens it. She's like, "Oh my god!" And then the Supergirl logo shows up, and then that's the end of the episode. That made me mad because, like, of course, they have to end on a cliffhanger just because it's the season finale. Of course, that's how they're going to draw people in to come back to the show when it gets renewed. So, I don't know, I mean, I'm curious because, like, at first I was like, wait, like, for some reason I thought, it'd be, oh, maybe it's Superman, but like, no, Superman's already around. So who could it be? I mean, it opens up a lot of doors and it makes me question a lot of things, like who could it be especially from the comics, or like a new character. I guess we'll find out when season 2 premieres later in the year. But to go back to what I said about the end of the episode, just I liked where everything ended up. Like, I'm glad like no one was really killed off, because with these Greg Berlanti shows, you know, Flash and Arrow, like their first season finales, they both killed off like major characters, and I thought that might have been the case with with this show, that they maybe could have killed off Wynn or any of the other characters. But they didn't, and it didn't get that dark, and it didn't get like that too too emotional, Because in the first season of Arrow, we see, this is a bit of a spoiler for anyone who hasn't watched Arrow, but at this point, if you're not gonna watch it, you're not gonna watch it. They killed off like Arrow's best friend, and season 1 of Flash, they killed off another major character in the show, which is Eddie Thawne. So when the show came around, and I'm like, okay, they better not do it again, because Greg Berlanti already did it with 2 seasons of 2 of his other shows. This season finale just made me really happy. Just when they're all at Kara's apartment and they're all like celebrating, and they left the chair open for like they're all setting up for the dinner table, and Kara's mom's there. Of course, Alex is there, John Jones is there, Wynn's there, James is there, and then they have their little moment. And of course, they play that cheesy Charlie Bluth Superman song in the background. I mean, it kind of fit, obviously, because it's the Supergirl show. But I don't know, because I feel like I was having too much of like a good moment with the whole scene, that I could do with this cheesy song. It didn't bug me as much as I thought it was gonna. But yeah, I think with that being said, that's gonna be it. Again, I loved this show. It had its ups and downs like any other show did, but at the end of the day, I loved the show so much. I really hope CBS picks it up. I think it's a great show. And there's not too many shows like this out there that like really like can empower young girls and empower women like the show does. Yeah, this show has a lot of like white actresses, and it's not the most diverse show. I mean, yeah, we have like African American characters and stuff in there, but I would like to see more of a diverse cast in this show. But I do like the message it's sending out, that you can be a female and you can be powerful, and you can be a badass and be all those things. Because I feel like there's not enough of that on TV sometimes, and we're starting to see more and more of that. But I feel like it's taking way too long. So, with that being said, and I'm done being political for the night, that's going to be it. So, if you guys like what you see here, go ahead and hit subscribe below. I do review other DC superhero shows. I review Flash on Tuesdays and Legend of Tomorrow on Thursdays. I used to review Arrow, but then they did something to a character, and I gave up that shitty show. And I do a bunch of other videos as well. I review comic book movie trailers. I review comic book movies and Star Wars related stuff. So you guys want to check out my channel, go ahead and hit subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up. What did you guys think of the Supergirl season finale? Did you guys like it? Do you guys have problems with it? Let me know in the comment section below. So again, that's going to be it. So until hopefully when the season comes back in season 2, season 2, that's going to be it. So with that being said, again, I'm rambling here. All right, so have a good one, guys.